Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we've got a beautiful reel in here. It belongs to Ernest. We just did one on his Jigmaster 500 where we upgraded the drag system to an ultimate upgrade. And this reel we're going to work on is a Surfmaster 100. It's an older one because it has the etched side plate. This one is in absolutely beautiful condition. It's already had some upgrades on it. It's moved over to the aluminum spool, and it has the leveraged handle on it. And what Ernest asked me to do is what we would typically call hot rod the reel. And what we're going to do here is we're going to change out the base frame for a Tiburon frame. He's conveniently labeled it for me, which is nice. And we are going to do the ultimate upgrade, a 5+1 drag system as opposed to a 3+1 drag system. So it's going to give you 2 additional drag washers in here. And that's going to add to the surface area of the drag, so it should increase the max drag. Now we did this one where we moved the Jigmaster to a 10+1 system, and that was on a different video. But these are by Brian Young. It's available at mysticparts.com. And these are Carbontex drag washers with metal shims, and the metal washers are thinner so that the base original main gear can accommodate the extra washers and hopefully add to that. So I'm going to start with the ultimate upgrade first, and then we'll go over and we'll put that Tiburon frame on. So this again is a beautiful reel. Ernest should be proud to be the owner of this one, and he's asked for that frame change and the hot rodding. So here we go. We'll start by taking the external pieces off. And I'm just going to remove that screw at this point. Then I'm going to remove the base plate for the gear side. I'm going to take the spool out as well. And then we're just going to set the frames aside as we work on the interior, which is the upgrading of the drag system. So we'll take off the handle screw. I'm going to use a Penn wrench for this. A lot of folks have asked about this wrench. This wrench is also available at mysticparts.com. I believe it's a wrench by Alan Tanney, and it runs about $20 US, but I like it. It's a thicker wrench than the original ones that come with Penn, and it's easier to grab the nut when you're at midstream. So you'll notice a couple of things. I have a protective glove on my hand. That's to keep the chemicals and oils off of it as much as possible. The other thing you'll notice is that I'm putting these pieces and parts into a parts tray. I like to keep that available so that it makes it easier for me to find those when it comes time to reinstall. I have a few of them around. They're nothing more than the bottoms of milk jugs, and I'm going to put a second one down here to keep track of these smaller screws. So to get to the drag systems, you have to remove the bridge, and in order to remove the bridge, you have to remove the 4 bridge screws that are on the exterior of this reel. To do that, I'm using a flat-bladed screwdriver. This one is an electrician's screwdriver. It enables you to grab the shaft of the screwdriver and twirl it. It's a rubber-based grip, and that, from an electrician standpoint, that enables them to work on an electric box that's live and not worry about hitting a hot wire and getting sparks. And in my case, I just like it. It's the right size for most Penn screws. It's about a 7/16. It's less than a 1/4 inch, and seems to have the right width for most of these, particularly the side plate screws. And we'll get over to those in just a moment. When we do this work on the bridges, understand that there's 2 different screws. There's a partially threaded screw, and there's a fully threaded screw. The full threaded screws go below. You'll also notice I'm cupping my hand as we do this, because when I push that bridge through, there is a spring that holds the anti-reverse dog, and I don't want to lose that. By experience, I've learned it'll shoot out if you're not paying attention. All right, that last one is loose there. We can push the bridge through. Just cup your hand. In this case, this is the older version of the reel. It has a flat spring, so we'll show you how to reinstall the flat spring as we go on the reassembly. This is your anti-reverse dog. Spool gear. I'll take all of this off because we're going to clean this reel in addition to just hot rodding it. That was the jack, the yoke, the 2 yoke springs. So the reel underneath is clean, as I would expect just from the look of the reel on the exterior. I'm just going to use a cotton swab to take off some of the residual grease that's just in there. And clean that up, and we'll re-lube this. I'm just going to put this aside for a moment as we go over and we do the work on this. So he gave me the replacement parts not only for the washers, which are in good condition. These are HT100 washers we're replacing. He's going to move these over to Carbontex. But also he gave me the stainless steel gear. Sometimes life gets in the way of a reel repair. I just had to go answer the door. So here we go then. He gave me the replacement here. It's a stainless steel shaft that he would like me to put on. I believe that's also part of the upgrade, but I'm not certain. Sometimes they make those shafts just a little bit longer, as we learned on the Jigmaster. Okay, so we're going to take this off. To do that, you push the pin through the main gear sleeve, then you can pull the gear sleeve off. Now, I like to return the parts that are defective when I service a reel, so we're going to put that right into the box, the bag here. Once we get that done, and pull the new stainless steel gear sleeve. We're going to put the old one right back in there, and we'll return that to Ernest. Okay, and then we're going to wipe down the core of this reel. Make sure it's free of debris. If you had anything that was really stubborn, you could grab a piece of steel wool, kind of work it over, but in this case everything is clean, so that's not needed. And then we'll grab a little bit of the blue grease. In this case I use a Penn precision reel grease. I guess that's appropriate because I'm working on a Penn reel, but the point is, regardless of who the manufacturer of the grease is, just make sure that it has the grease that is made for the fishing reel. Okay, and then I have a stainless steel screw. We have 2 holes on this. I'm imagining that this one is an either or. It probably fits more than one shaft because there are offsets. One's higher than the other, so probably is set up for that reason. And then we can get busy with the upgrade. So this, as I mentioned, is the ultimate upgrade for drag washers. It takes the 3+1. They don't count the metal ones. The one is in the back there. And let's do that upgrade, because that's going to change it over to 5. All right, we'll take the Cal's Universal Drag Grease out. Here's the one. The one goes on the bottom of the main gear. And we're going to check the main gear before reinstalling. We'll make sure all the teeth are good and that they're clean. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that blue grease and just kind of randomly hit it. Make sure that we get some nice grease going on the main gear. I see a little bit of residual oil laying around in that main gear, so I'm just going to grab a cotton swab and clean that off. And then we're going to go in a process of 5. I'm going to dip that into my Cal's Universal Drag Grease. I'm going to grab it with my glove hand and spread it around so that it covers the drag washer. I'm going to wipe off the excess, and then I'm going to install. So on the installation instructions here, it tells you what the order is, and it's the low washer, kind of working from the bottom up. It's the under gear washer, main gear, Carbontex washer, keyed washer. You'll notice that there's keyed and eared washers going on here. So this would be the keyed washer, which is round but no points on it. And we're going to do this, we'll count them down. This is the second one, so we're going to do this 4 more times. We're going to apply the grease, wipe off the excess, put that down. Next one up then is the first of the eared washers. This is the third of the drag washers then. We'll do the same thing. Wipe it off. Now you can see why I wear that glove. It just makes it easier and it becomes a tool. I'm going to put the next of the round washers. Alright, this is the fourth of those then. Wipe. Get rid of the excess. On. Next is the keyed washer. It's sort of like a jigsaw puzzle coming together here. Last of the Carbontex washers. And as you'll see now, we've got 5 where we used to have 3 of the drag washers, and we have 5 of the metal washers where we used to have the 3. Now this does not call for the cap washer, so I find that somewhat interesting, and we're just going to take it at that cap washer does not belong on there. And I imagine if you measured up the stacks here, that these stacks come true to the drag stack, and in this case this last one is sitting proud. So we'll put that on. We'll make sure that it has the right tension behind it, and if needed we'll put this cap washer back in, but for now I don't think that they are needed. I'm going to gather these washers up and put them back in the box or in the bag that the upgrade came from, and we're going to return those as well. Okay, let's reassemble the side plate then. We've cleaned the side plate. Let's make sure it gets some lubrication. Put it into the slot where the spool is going to go. Lubricate the eccentric. Put the 2 springs in. This is pretty fairly common in terms of how to do all of the Penn reels. As I mentioned, this reel is an older one because it has the flat spring. I think the flat spring was replaced universally in the late 50s with the coil spring. So if you have a flat spring set up for your anti-reverse dog, that's one way to date your reel. Alright, these are all cleaned. We're just placing some grease onto the yoke. The yoke accepts the spool gear. The spool gear has 2 sides. It has an indented side and it has a flat side. The indented side accepts the spool, so you make sure that that's facing out when you go to put that together. Just going to clean off a little bit of the grease on the jack, and then we're ready to install. So we take the 2 springs, we place the spool gear and yoke over those 2 springs and press down. Again, the indentation facing outward. And then we slip the jack over the top. That completes that portion of the assembly. We're going to take the bridge assembly and we're going to place that in. And we rotate approximately halfway. Then we can put in our anti-reverse dog. You put it in with a fully threaded screw because it's on the lower post. You slip the anti-reverse dog over it so that it intersects with the teeth on the gear sleeve. Now we have that little flat spring. That little flat spring lays on top of the anti-reverse dog, wraps around the post, and holds against the side plate. Just like that. That's properly loaded, so you're sitting on top of the anti-reverse dog around the post onto the side plate. Then you can complete the rotation of the bridge. And with that, I like to get this screw just set enough. Maybe the first tooth or so, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch or something, just a turn or 2. I don't like to fully tie them down until I have all of the screws in. So I go north, south, east, west. Those of you that watch my videos have heard that more than once. And that kind of makes sure that you have an even pressure on it and that you don't bind the bridge as you're installing. Alright, we got that one started. Usually you can feel it, sometimes you can't. In that case I was having a little tough time feeling it. And again, I'm not tightening any of these down until I have all 4 of them grabbing, because these bridges very tight tolerances, and sometimes you'll notice that it's just not lining up for some reason, and most of the time that's because the bridge is going in slightly askew. Like this one, I'm just having a little bit of trouble with this. There we go. And if I was tightened down on the other ones, there'd never be a chance for us to start that one. Okay, and then the last one goes up top on the other side. And that's the part 1 of the hot rodding. It's putting in the 5 stack as a 5 plus 1 as opposed to 3 plus 1. Once I have that, I can tighten them all down now. Make sure they're tight. Boats vibrate a lot if you're taking this one out on a boat, and they'll shake these screws free if you have this thing sitting in your rod holder for any length of time. Now, this one doesn't look like it sits in a boat on a regular basis, and it's been taken care of, but the point is, don't leave them loose. They'll shake free. Can't tell you how many of them might come in to my shop missing bridge screws or missing the screws for the side plates. Okay, the next part of this is where we're going to do the Tiburon frame then. I'm just going to put the gear sleeve on. If we didn't grease the shaft, we put oil in here. It looks like we have plenty of drag here, so I'm assuming that cap washer is not part of it in the new sequence. Working nicely. I'm going to put that back into my tray. We're going to come over here and we're going to do the Tiburon upgrade then. So I'm going to thank Ernest first and foremost for putting the labels on this so that we know what is the front and what is the back. He also sent me the instructions for this, so we'll make sure that we pay attention to those. But with the frame, he also told me to make sure that I read the highlighted part, which says it's imperative that you grease the screws. That makes sense, so we'll go ahead and we'll do that. And then it's simply a matter of a transference at this point for the cases. So we're going to start with the front of the reel, which is the Tiburon. We're going to take the side plate off, that is the gear side plate. And this, unfortunately, is just a manual exercise here. You'll have to bear with me. So in a matter of, I don't know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, not only can we service the whole reel, but we can change out a frame as well. So if you ever have to do a post replacement, or you decide to upgrade the cosmetics on your reel, even if you're not doing a Tiburon frame, this is how you do it. You take your screws off the side and pull it out. There's 2 different sets of screws on the Jigmasters and the Surfmasters, this being a Surfmaster. The screws are short, and they're also tapered flatheads for the side that accepts the one screw take apart system on the reel plate, side plate. This one is in beautiful condition, but I'm going to do that upgrade, so there you go. Start with something nice, you finish with something nicer, I guess, right? Alright, that's the last of the screws then. That's the ring we want at the moment. We're going to leave this for the second part of this. That's the front because it's got the name on it. This is the side plate as it goes here. And let's make sure that we follow their instructions about it being imperative to put the grease onto the screws. I'm sure they've had problems in the past where those screws have seized, so that's probably why the warning comes. And you know me with small screws, those of you that watch, so this ought to be an interesting exercise for the next few minutes as we load these in. And one of the things I like about these frames here is that you can do this. If you don't tighten it down, you can always use the frame to hold your screw, which for me is a wonderful thing since I can't hold them myself for much. So I'm going across to the other hole now. So I'm going to keep sliding on the bench here. Oh, and that's why I have the screw in the wrong starter hole over here. Proving once again that we're human. Alright, get that one in. Let's put this back in its hole here. These things really are light. It's crazy how light these frames are. Light and strong, that's their claim to fame. Alright. Grab this again. Make sure we get the grease on there. And again, I'm not tightening any of these down because I'm using this ring to support the screws. The other side gets a little bit easier. And if this is painful to watch, other than painful to do, come on back, go get yourself a cup of coffee. This will be a minute or two before I complete this. I do like to show every step along the way, so that's why we're not pausing and coming back and saying, look what I did. So if you feel the urge, go get yourself a cup of coffee. I'll still be here. Okay, getting down to the end of it now. Two more on this. Like I said, the other side's easier because it doesn't have these internal screws here. Okay, one more. Grease it up well. And that'll be the last of the screws. And we'll tighten them all down, and we'll go over, pull the other side, and make sure that the reel is operational and looking nice. So a lot of folks like the hot rod reels. I've never been one to do that. I've always been one to just work with the reels as they were designed. Occasionally I'll change up bearings for bushings on some reels, but for the most part, unless it's needed, I don't typically do this. Not for any particular reason other than I think the reel designers generally know what they're doing, and the expense a lot of times is just not worth the price of admission. So I just leave them as they are, and I like to get them out fishing. And I guess if you're casting all day, then yeah, the lightness of the reel here with the Tiburon frame means a lot. But if you're casting all day, you're probably not using this reel because there's better ball bearing alternatives out there for casting. So regardless. Alright, just tightening the last ones down. Thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate your patience there. And we'll go over, take the other side plate off and do the same. And as I mentioned in this one, this is easier because there's no taper to them. Take this glove off. There's no need for this glove at the moment. It's easier just to twirl. Once you break that screw hold, you can just twirl the posts off. unless you get severe corrosions. That way you can leave the screws in there, and especially if we're swapping out the frames here, make it easier. Normally I would put those screws into my parts tray because we would be coming back for them. In this case, it's they're going right back out on the reel again. Okay, so we've got the metal parts, the original metal parts are off. Those will go back in the return bag for Ernest. Let's just give this a quick clean here. The screws are coming out, which is fine. Again, they recommend us greasing these before we install, so let's just get some grease on these before I even put any of them back in. I guess I shouldn't have taken the glove off. There you go, there's that grease again. I guess they're using the grease as an anti-seize here. It says not only will it make it go in easier, but it'll stop the corrosion in the lake. Okay, the other side goes on then. This shouldn't be nearly as bad. Do the same thing here. I go east, west, north, south. I alternate. I don't go in a circular pattern here. Also with this one is the same as the other side. You have two short screws. The short screws go into the reel seat. So it's important to notice the sequence. This is one of the short screws. This is the other. Once you have those two up there, you pretty much align. You don't have to visually sight these anymore. I'm just getting them caught first. I want to leave play in this side plate in case the screw hole is off just a little bit. You want to make sure that you have some room for them. Okay, one more to get started here, and then we'll tighten them all down. We'll install that spool and we'll see what we got. Beautiful piece. Beautiful piece. So I'm sure Ernest is going to be happy with it. Ernest, I know when we did the Jigmaster one, I asked you to report back on the operation of that 5+1 system. I'd ask you to do the same thing here. Let me know the differences that you experienced with that ultimate upgrade. Let me know your thoughts about it, and if you recommend it, I'll pass that along to our viewers as well. Try to be careful here. I don't want to scratch the side plate. This is a very nice reel, so you don't want to be reckless. Okay, there we go. Just making sure the last ones are tightened down. Same idea as we were talking about before. These things will shake loose if given the chance. All right, underneath then, we just want to put a little bit of grease into the bearing slash adjuster on spool adjuster on this side. Grab the spool. A little bit of grease. Now this one's been upgraded already. This is an aluminum spool. As I mentioned, this thing started production of this in the 1940s, and it wasn't discontinued until 2002. And there was a lot of upgrades during that time, side plate changes and so on. One of the later changes was this aluminum spool. So if you find one that's got an aluminum spool, it's either been upgraded or it's been replaced, or it's a later version. This fishing wire coming through these cases always drives me nuts, but it does. Just be careful. Your reel won't work if you leave that through there. Okay, a little bit of grease on there. Let's grab the side plate, put that on. Tighten it down. It's beautifully engineered. We're not struggling at all in terms of making that happen. Quick spin says it's all installed properly. This one was in the middle when we took it on the leverage handle, so we'll put it back in the middle. Always important to note, if you're taking a project on like this and you haven't worked on a reel like this, a couple of things for advice. I usually say it early in my conversations. Take pictures along the way. Those pictures will tell you where those parts came from and what sequence they were in. And if you go to reinstall and you look in your parts tray and you find that you still got something left over in there, it'll kind of tell you where it came from in the process. All right, in this case, I noticed that the handle was in the mid slot, but if you were wondering, of course it's probably your reel, so you probably knew where it is, but if you were wondering, go back to the picture and take a look at when you started. Okay, last part then, it's the set screw that holds the handle screw from going anywhere. There you go, there's a beautiful Penn Surfmaster 100 with a 5-in-1 upgrade to Carbontex. Washers. Nice smooth operation all around, good looking reel, and this one's ready to go fishing. So with that, I hope you've enjoyed seeing how to hot rod a particular reel. I ask you to subscribe if you're enjoying my channel to see more. There's lots more on deck as I show most of the reels that come into my shop for servicing. And I appreciate you watching. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.